Perfect. Thank you. Thank you ever so much. Good morning, everyone. My name is Sam Mowbray. I am the Chief Exec of Swindon Borough Council, and I'm delighted to be here. Welcome to the Wyvern Theatre. I am going to take you through, I feel like it's been a beautiful opportunity to reflect. So I've been at Swindon Council now since 2015. So we definitely launched with Jadu in about 2014 because it was coming in, or it had just come in as I started in March 2015. So been at the council for 10 years, been the chief exec for 2. And I'm going to talk a little bit about some work that I did with some people who are in the room today back in 2017. And that presentation that Suraj has just done has made me feel like it was about 250 years ago, because things have just moved on so much. But what hasn't, my presentation, I didn't understand half of that because I'm not a techie, but my presentation is about people, I think. I gave this presentation, something very similar, about our experience when we were in it back in 2018. And it's been a beautiful opportunity to reflect on what were the ingredients we needed to be successful. And I don't think the ingredients have changed much, despite the fact that the technology has changed beyond recognition from 2017. I think the things that you need to be successful haven't. So hopefully this presentation is useful in that regard. Just wanted to talk a little bit about Swindon, because I'm very, very proud to be the chief exec here. You can probably tell I'm not a natural native Swindonian. I'm from a place called Hartlepool in the northeast, but have been here. I came here for the job and have made Swindon my home, and I'm very, very proud of the place. It is a town of reinvention. So grew massively as a result of the railways and Isambard Kingdom Brunel because of its the distance, its central point between Bristol and London many, many years ago. It then reinvented itself to be a centre for the motor industry with Honda and other motor manufacturers here. Honda closed down just before COVID, and that was a massive blow for the town. But actually, we have reinvented again. Mention was made of drones. We are rapidly becoming a centre of excellence for drone technology. I did take umbrage at the word factory, but for drone technology. And I discovered yesterday, it's amazing what you learn about your place, that we are the second largest contributor after Manchester to climate technology businesses and supply chain, which is incredible. Swindon is also, I'm sorry, I'm going to keep talking about Swindon. Swindon is also on the Centre for Cities Good Growth Guide, the 5th most productive city, even though we're not a city, we're a town, in the country, and is a really proud, honest, I feel like Swindon's a sort of a northern town in the south, which is probably why I've got on quite well here. Nick's stolen my line about Oasis. But we are also the birthplace of the musical legend that is Billy Piper. XTC, which my husband apparently knows, he's much older than me. Apparently they're a band. And if you haven't experienced the Magic Roundabout, Strictly Come Dancing has just started, and it's like Viennese waltzing for cars is the only way I can describe it. So welcome. We're really pleased to have you here. If I, and again, I'm rubbish at instructions, there we are. I did remember that. So I'm just going to talk a little bit. So I joined Swindon in 2015 as the head of performance, people and engagement, and went off and got married in 2017. And on my honeymoon, I was like, I'm not sure what my job is anymore. I'd appointed some amazing people, some of whom are in the room today, and didn't feel like I was adding an awful lot of value. I'd sorted out the things that I was brought in to sort out. And we're sort of going, I think you need to make me redundant. I'm not sure what I'm doing here, really. And I came back off my honeymoon, and the chief exec at the time said, right, you've kept banging on. Swindon had a bit of habit of looking at the external things we needed to do, when internally there was paper everywhere, absence was all over the show. We were a bit shot internally, but we were closing libraries, we were closing children's centres, and we were doing various things that really impacted on our residents. And she said to me, right, come on, I need you to put your money where your mouth is. You've whinged about it for long enough. I want you to run an organisational excellence programme. And the reason why that change was needed is fairly evident. We were printing 15 million sheets of paper. Now, that sounds horrendous now. But what it also was is a real proxy for broken systems. It was people, using a slightly online system, then printing it off and then scanning it into another system and all of that kind of jazz. Our digital services were pretty rubbish. And only 8.5% of all of our interactions with customers took place online. So we began a partnership with Jadu in 2017. I started this organisational excellence programme, and that's where we went. And I'm not going to talk about any of the technology involved in that because I didn't really understand it, and that wasn't my job. But what we did, and I'm just going to talk you through the journey. So we started really small. Quick wins to prove the case for change. I cannot, and this may sound, I'm probably preaching to the converted, the importance of first followers in digital change is just massive. Finding those people who were willing to go first, recognising that we needed to save money, and quite often that money was people leaving the organisation. It wasn't the easiest of sells, and people at the time were really siloed, really proprietary about their services. The thing, I've gone the wrong way because what am I doing? There we are. The thing that I would say made a massive difference is me being taken out of my job to really just focus on this and really, really hack people off and be absolutely driven around, we are doing this, it's not going away, everybody needs to get on board, and having the time and space with some other brilliant people who I'll talk about in a moment to create a bit of buzz about why this could work. This programme had a massive, massive digital element, and I think at the time, I still think we've got a really long way to go with digital literacy in our organisation, but at the time it was a dirty word, I would say. I was really, really grateful to the political leadership we got from our members at the time. And I'm just going to take the opportunity now just to manage the expectations. We've got an elected member in the room. We will not be publishing any dashboards around Members Hotline. We have an election in May, and our members have in the past used the Members Hotline facts and figures to demonstrate how hard they work and put it on their leaflets. So it's going to create an awful lot of work for my teams, and we're not doing it, but after May we will be absolutely implementing, ready for our new cohort of councillors in 2026. We'll absolutely be taking the work you've done off the library and implementing that. 'Cause, this is how it's a real reflection of where Jadu has gone and where councils have gone. I can remember a conversation with Siraj when I came in, and members were like raging about Members Hotline, and I can remember you saying to me, we didn't build this platform for Members Hotline. It wasn't back in 2014, 15, it wasn't even thought about. And then you hear a presentation here about doing it in Teams and all the rest of it. It does blow your mind a little bit about how fast everything has moved on. The big thing that made a difference from us, and I'll come to the facts and figures, is this, is building that in-house capability. We set up a digital hub with a target. They were a big part of the target to save £30 million in 30 months. We were really simplistic in our messaging around our programme. It was called the Swindon Programme. It was so simplistic I'd forgotten it. I had to go around the room and ask some people. It was called the Swindon Programme, and we had some key metrics. Save £30 million in 30 months, which we did. Reducing the amount of paper from 15 million sheets to 1 million, which we did. I'll be honest, COVID helped us a little bit with that. Go from 8.5% digital interactions to 85%. We're at 75%. But it was really easy for people to remember. And we seconded people into a digital hub team as business analysts. And Richard was an original member of that team and is still in that, and that team is now permanent. It's not even called the Digital Hub team, it's now embedded entirely in the organisation. But the really big thing that worked for us was partnering with Jadu around how do you help us to upskill people who are not digital experts, who are not IT experts. Obviously, the fact that it was really easy to use was helped with that. But it was very much about that partnering was, we want to not need you. and we want to be able to do this ourselves in the longer term. And that approach has really stood the test of time. And Richard is obviously testament to that. We kept our digital skills in-house. We expanded our digital skills, but didn't actually spend an awful lot of money on the capacity and capability. We just moved it around a little bit. And this presentation is really low tech, as you can tell, but I think it's reflective of you've got to manage the expectations of the new system. The biggest lesson that we learned is do not lead with the technology. People do not, some people get really excited. People in this room get really excited by the technology. Social workers, educational psychologists, people who work in our waste management services, they get excited by changing the lives of residents. And that's where we started with. And I'm going to come back to that first follow-up point. It's all about culture and behaviour. It's absolutely all about culture and behaviour. We're doing a big, massive programme of change now. And, one of the things I'm saying out in the organisation is we've restructured to solve problems that are actually cultural problems that need a much deeper look, and you've got to really go deep into does this keep happening? And I think that's what we did. In an easier context, the world has tipped on its axis, it feels to me, in the 10 years I've been in Swindon. But that's what we absolutely did. We tapped into what are the problems you're trying to solve? Where are you failing residents? Where do you need help? And I can always remember, I'm going to talk about two people. There's a gentleman called Damon Green, who is now our head of environmental health. And we had to save money, right? So everybody knew this was about potentially reducing headcount, as well as making services as lean and efficient for residents. And I can remember saying to Damon, I need you to be one of the first services to go through this process of, digital redesign and getting our business analysts to do the sort of stuff that you've seen on the pictures that Siraj has shown. And I can remember Damon saying to me, I'll do it, Sam, but if you do not get around the whole of this organisation and do this to everybody else, I'll never forgive you. I can always remember, he's a very blunt speaker, is our Damon. And I was like, right, fine, Damon, that's a deal, let's do it. And so he went, he was the first service to go through this process. And then the other person who I can always remember, we've got a very softly spoken member of our economic development team who at the time was in planning. It's a gentleman called Dave Jewett. He's from Southern Ireland, very, very quiet, unassuming chap. He's responsible for so much at the council, I can't tell you. And I can always remember knowing that we'd cracked it when Dave Jewett stood up we have something called a wider management team quarterly meeting, 80 managers, between 80 and 100 managers go, and Dave stood up and talked about why you shouldn't fear the process of digital redesign and service redesign, and talked about the difference it had made for him in the planning service, what benefits he got out of it, how he'd engaged with the process. And I sat there and I felt really, really proud that, someone who, Dave is not a digital person at all, could speak so warmly and comfortably about the work that we had done with him. A lot of it's in the programme management, so sequencing matters. If you redesign a service before you fix the system, you always have to redo the work. That's about the extent of my digital understanding, but I've learned that. We prioritised our core systems. We worked with Jadu around some of those integrations. It was really painful at times, really painful. I mean, seriously, some stuff. I could scream about the missed opportunities that we had at that point. We're doing some work, and it was us. It wasn't Jadu, it was us. We're doing some work now around integrating back with Bartek that was there years ago, but we decided that Bartek was a little bit too expensive for us, went with something else. 7 years later, we're unpicking that, and Bartek's in, and we're getting the benefit out of it. But sometimes cheap isn't efficient. Our approach was agile, it was service-led. We went where the energy was, I'll be really honest. It wasn't massively strategic in the initial days. We went where people were willing to work with us. And it's really interesting because I just said to Danielle, what was the name of the programme, the overarching programme? She was like, 30 and 30. Sam, it was called 30 and 30. I was like, Dan, it wasn't. But just some of those simple messages, like, resonated and kept, everybody knew what it meant, everybody knew what it was about. And I never lead with the money, but there is something about creating that burning platform. Oh, next slide is sharing the burning platform. There you are. Anyone would think I'd planned it. Right. You have to, we are grappling with this again now. Not so much actually in the sort of digital world, but I'll come back to that. But in our real significant demand services, you know, where last year we're in a really difficult, tricky financial position. I'm sure many of you are, and if you're not yet, you will be soon with fairer funding, I sense. But there is something. We have got £45 million worth of pressure going into our budget from children's and adults next year, and there is something about how do you share and build that burning platform and be really transparent about the pressures and risks. It's really difficult. I think some people just think it's nothing to do with them, and I think if the only thing I would reflect on that we didn't necessarily get right is, and this is the thing that we're definitely doing at the moment, is we should have gone really deep into some of our services, like children's and adults. Adults were willing participants. Children's just basically told us to piss off and shut the door. And we let them, and we shouldn't have. And we are absolutely struggling with that now. But we were really honest about the pressures and the risks. We used simple measures, call volumes, turnaround times, to make that urgency really, really visible. And we identified those colleagues who noticed problem early and involved them in the programme. So in this room today, there are 4 people working in our digital stratosphere who we have picked out, or have picked themselves out actually, from being in service delivery. So Danielle is currently seconded to our digital team. Danielle has had loads of jobs at the council, haven't you, Danielle? I'm going to embarrass you, but you know, I first met Danielle when she was working in our early help services. She's worked in public health nursing, and has absolutely just been incredibly curious, incredibly interested in how can we do things differently. So we've pulled Danielle out of her job, and she's been doing amazing work. Daryl, you started in housing, didn't you, Daryl? And we plucked Daryl from what were you doing in housing, Daryl? Performance management housing. Daryl now runs our website. Brooke started as a grad and is now our senior business analyst, running our business analyst team. And Richard, obviously, you were in customer services, weren't you, Richard? And came from customer services into the digital hub. And I think there is definitely something about identifying those people. So if I can just use a present example, because this is going to be a bit of a shot across the bows to our IT colleagues in the room. I am really fortunate that I have the best PA in the world. She's a lady called Jill. She's probably saving me currently about a day a week because she's co-piloting the shit out of everything. Right, honestly, Jill is like plugged in what my tone of voice is. She's writing me emails, she's sticking them in my drafts. I just check that I'm happy with them. Colleagues from Swindon, don't tell everybody this is happening, and out they go. Like she is absolutely wonderful, and Jill is absolutely mad keen to go and like share what she's taught herself. She's absolutely taught herself, and I think there's something about IT colleagues. How do you let these people loose? How do you give them the freedom, you know, the trust to be able to go and support the rest of the organisation with what they need to do? And I think sometimes we get a bit frightened of that. You know, these crazy people are going to do things that are going to get us into trouble. They are not. So I've just asked you to think about that. So what we unlocked in practice. So Jadu Connect became our platform for repeatable service patterns. Our partnership, I am absolutely very choosy about who we partner with in Swindon. It's all about fit. It's all about values. It's all about culture. I absolutely love what Jadu stand for in terms of how do we share the experience with each other. and was sold on that in the really early days, and I haven't changed my opinion of that. I think local government does itself a massive disservice because we're fragmented in our approach, and then we wonder why we have access to absolutely shitty systems that make big companies loads and loads of money. It's because we are not joined up and shouting with one voice, and I think Jadu's ethos of that is really, really important, and we could learn from it. So today 74% of our interactions are online. We've processed £2 million online every year via Jadu Connect. We're printing 15 million fewer pages. That's actually 14 million because we went from 15 to 1. And that is absolutely it's a proxy for rubbish systems, I think, that paper one. And if I can just before I invite Suraj up, my learning is it's not about digital, it's about culture and it's about leadership. And that's really important. Political leadership, senior leadership, leadership across the organisation, finding those people who will agitate and do everybody's head in and giving them the space and time to do that. If I have to listen one more time to, oh, that person's a nuisance, yeah, they're a nuisance, but they're absolutely doing all the right stuff, and go with it. The other thing that I found really, really difficult, and had a really interesting conversation with Suraj recently, who helped me to really reframe my thinking about it. We've had some people who worked with us in those early days of the Digital Hub who didn't stay with us. And I can remember saying, one of them is particularly sore for me. And I can remember I was talking to Suraj about it the other day, and he said, but what you are is you're an incubator for digital talent, Sam, actually. Like, you know, you've got people off now who work for Google, you've got people who've gone off to work, you know, a lot of them have gone to the private sector. But actually what you are doing, you have them for a time, and I think Suraj mentioned it. I am really proud that we have been an incubator for talent for the sector. Thankfully, everybody who has left us is still working in some way to support local government, because I'd find that really difficult if they weren't. But yeah, I did have to like recalibrate my thinking about people moving on from this part of the world. And yeah, finally, I'd just say, digital professionals, please remember COVID. You know, we trusted people with things that they didn't really know how to do, and the world didn't end. So I think we just need to be brave, and we just need to kind of take some of the brakes off. That's my experience in Swindon. That's what I keep agitating for us. And yeah, and let's see where we go.